This is the Final Word Daily with Geoff Lemon and Cameron Ponsonby. It is an England-Zimbabwe daily. Day one from Lords, the show brought to you by McInnes Whiskey, the cask specialists. Cameron, please tell me about the day's Test cricket in the space of 30 seconds.
3 wickets, 3 centuries. England finished 498 for 3. The new humble England. And in all their humility, they bullied Zimbabwe and just made for a bizarre day's cricket where, in effect, I left the day thinking, do Zimbabwe own any fielders? I never saw a ball hit to one all day. England got 500 at 5.5 and over. They hardly played a shot in anger. They just hit the ball in the gap to the boundary. Zak Crawley, 124. Ben Duckett, 140. Ollie Pope's on 169, not out. He's on course for a second double century of his career. England are going to get 600, and then they're going to try and bowl Zimbabwe out twice.
Just running through the boundary list here, 4 sixes, and is that 62 fours, something like that? And yet, like you say, it didn't feel like England were really, really going for it at any stage. There were just opportunities galore. I want to start with a proposition to put to you. I'm gonna make a suggestion. You can tell me if this works. Today was the perfect day. Whatever you think of Zak Crawley, there are people who love Zak Crawley and there are people who hate Zak Crawley, at least hate him being in the team and think he shouldn't be there. No matter what you thought, if you were a Zak Crawley supporter, great. He's gone out there, he's made 100, he's looked good, he's made first innings runs, which he hasn't done all season. And, you know, he's done everything that you could have asked for him. If you hate Zak Crawley, you say, look at this fucking joker. He went out there. It was so easy. He was playing a shitbox team who have no bowlers. Everyone else made runs as well. This only proves that he's no good. It's a perfect Rorschach block. Whatever you think of him, you can squint your eyes and you can tell yourself that it supports the argument that you want to make at the pub.
You know what? I was thinking about this exact thing earlier. And I think Zak Crawley's actually proved something we didn't associate with him in that Crawley's whole thing is he doesn't score runs against good attacks. He scores 30. He averages 30 in Div 2 of the county championship. And his ceiling against India, against Australia, that's where he's at his best. But just doing the job of churning out runs when they're cheap, when they're free, is arguably the thing that's been missing from his career. He doesn't have that many kind of stat pad centuries across his professional portfolio. And so, yeah, the thing is, both him and Ollie Pope are in effect competing for one spot at the moment. And they've nullified each other because by Crawley getting 100, it means that Pope basically had to get one because otherwise it's like, well, Crawley's got runs and you haven't, so Bethell comes in. Now they've both got centuries. It means that both their centuries don't count and England will just go back. Will just go back to whatever they thought in the first race. And Bethell will slot in wherever he will. I think in terms of it fulfills whichever argument you want. I think Pope potentially falls into that bracket a little bit more because I got a what's the word? A slightly facetious message from a friend.
Hard to believe that.
I know. And they went, oh, it was quite a funny joke. They went, starting skittishly before stat padding against a weak opposition. And people said we had a new Pope. And I went, oh, very good. Well done, everyone. But look, what can they do? The old cliche is true. You can only beat what's put in front of you. And if you've got two lads who are under pressure and one gets 120 and one's on 170 red, continuing, what's the fuss? What else can England want?
Right. And with the chance to resume, they haven't declared tonight, which means presumably they want to bat on for a good chunk tomorrow, add another 100 or so, get to 600, something like that. We can come back to that later. But so if Ollie Pope can then go, here's another cheap double century. Did he make the 200 against Ireland? Was that the
Ireland?
Yeah. That rang a bell. And this game felt very similar to that game in a lot of ways. So there was a lot of talk beforehand about Zimbabwe haven't played a test in England in 22 years. And I could say maybe by the end of today, it feels like it's been 22 years and one day, and they still haven't played cricket in England because they didn't really do it today. They were there notionally. They were there on the team sheet. But this is the kind of situation that you get where, you know, we on this show are very firm advocates of more cricket across the gaps, across the divides. You've got to have the teams that aren't as good playing the teams that are better resourced so that they can all start to improve together, so that you can get the upset results. But to get the upset results, you have to have the results that go the way that you expect. And this was exactly the way that things went today. It's necessary for these matches to happen. But you look at this first day and go, ooh, that was pretty grim. Zimbabwe won the toss, chose to bowl, which felt like they were looking after themselves in the old dictum that, you can lose the test batting in the first hour, but you probably can't lose at bowling in the first hour. You probably can lose at bowling in the first 6 hours if nothing improves after that. They had their moments. There was that little moment around about the first drinks break an hour in when the ball was starting to swing a bit. Blessing Musrabani put it on a length a couple of times and had it moving away from Crawley. And then Richard Ngarava goes off injured with a back spasm. They're down a bowler. They missed their length so often. Raza bowled short when it was time for spin. The lines for the quicker bowlers were never consistent enough. And in the end, it just became too easy for those England players to work themselves into the game.
You're right. This is the kind of catch-22 we live in terms of wanting to spread the global game. I think it was Ed Joyce. It was an Irish player after an ODI World Cup, I want to say in 2015 or 2011, and like Dale Staines run through him. And the journalist put to Ed Joyce, let's say it's Ed Joyce, do you reckon this is an example of why you guys shouldn't be here? And he went, no. This is exactly why we should be here, because the only way we get better at this is if we experience it and come back stronger and improve. And I did have a little bit of sadness where I went, so 22 years later, it's got worse. Right, brilliant. And look, people can have bad days. And Zimbabwe beat Bangladesh in Bangladesh very recently. They have a chock-a-block schedule this year of 11 test matches. Like, this is a good thing. And if they have to eat shit for a day and it turns out England just pump them once, fine, whatever. Like, it shouldn't be a reason why this fixture should not happen again in the future. But it went, I'm going to be honest, when you went, they had that moment around drinks, I was like, did they? I don't remember that. I just remember the ball. I just remember everything being cut. And like, I referenced it at the top of the show where I was like, they don't have any fielders. Because normally if you have a kind of sweeper on the boundary, it's because you're kind of working an angle. So often, and they had it a lot today, Zimbabwe, you have mid-off, cover, and then you have deep point, because the idea is you're bowling mid-80s. It's slicing off the outside half of the bat, and you're cleaning up in the areas where like the ball goes because it's going quick. Ollie Pope just kept on cutting the ball in front of square, and this sweeper was never used because they were so early on it. I think it was Victor Nuachi, apologies, like he was bowling like 78 miles an hour, and Pope and Ben Duckett every time were just leaning into it and casting it in front of square. Look, it was what it was. I thought Zimbabwe dragged it back. I thought Secunda Raza in particular, having bowled some pretty kind of bowled pretty averagely to begin with by his standards, then started bowling kind of very accurately in the evening session. And I think he had like a spell of like 15 overs for 40. And that was kind of a reminder of that these guys are good cricketers. They've performed well in kind of recent World Cups. I think it was the 2022 T20 World Cup. They pulled off a number of shocks. They're a good team. And it's not like they're going to have gone back to the changing rooms this evening going, well, that's as good as we got. It was
might as well pack it in.
Yeah, it was a tough day from Zimbabwe, and they paid the price for it.
It very much was. And that point that I was getting at before, in order to have shocks, in order to have upsets, you need to have the 9 games where things go the way that people expect in order for the 10th one to be an upset. The aim is for wins to stop being upsets, but that is a lot further off. So, yeah, bowling card, pretty ugly looking. Musrabani, 1 for 111 from 20 overs. Tanaka Chivanga, none for 83 from 12, went at about 7 and over. Victor Naochi got slotted as well. It seemed like everything he bowled was short. The ball was swinging a bit when he pitched it up, but he didn't pitch it up that often. None for 103 from 18 overs, and Secunda Raza 1 for 93 from 24. So you've got 2 bowlers who turned up already, 2 who could turn up pretty quickly tomorrow. And it says something when Richard Ngarava has had the best day, because he only had none for 42 on the sheet because he went off on a motorised cart halfway through the day, and actually ended up having the best day of any of the bowlers, the frontline bowlers. So England's situation, Ben Duckett, ton at a runner ball. Ben Duckett kind of style, got to a 40 at about a runner ball as well. First to go with the score on 231. And then Crawley, who went along a lot slower. It was interesting that he was happy to take his time, strike rate of 70-odd today. Added another 137 with Ollie Pope before he was out with the score at 368. So you've got Duckett slamming one to cover and Crawley missing one from the spinner leg before wicket. Fifth tests, hundreds for both of those two. And, you will get that situation where it's almost like the more runs you make against a weaker team, the angrier people get at you. And I'm sure there'll be a bit of that going around as well as with Ollie Pope tonight.
I was thinking this when Crawley was close to his 100, I think when Duckett got his 100 first, in my head I was like, Zak Crawley needs to coordinate an England collapse as quickly as possible because there is an amount of runs where the runs become so inflated that they cease to have value. And there's a fine line you walk there. And at the moment, I think England have got to the point where they've kind of stopped to count, and they'll just be logged in your record, and you have another Test century. We'll all forget about it eventually, and your average is better at the end of your career. I actually thought the two most interesting bits I found for England today happened off the pitch before we started playing. First of all was the fact that this is the new humble England team, and they proceeded to take the piss and just bully people. The second one was England have been very, very insistent, almost to the point they have acknowledged the need to be smarter and savvier in the press, in the media. Yesterday, Ben Stokes said,
I hope they don't. It's been so much fun.
Geoff, I agree with you so much. I was talking to someone about this the other day where I was like, these guys are bonkers. And often they drive you up the wall. But as soon as it's gone, I'll miss it. It's been so much fun. It's so much fun interviewing Jacob Bethell at the end of a day's play where India have got you 700 behind. And he goes, I think that's all right, actually. And you go, what? No, it's not. That's not fine.
I reckon we can get him.
But sorry. And do you know what's annoying is in Hyderabad, he was fucking right. He was correct. So Ben Stokes has said yesterday, he's gone add 2 and 2 together. If you're pretty smart, Bethell will be coming back. And the press had asked him explicitly about the team. And so I'm on kind of the UK journo chat and the transcripts come in and I messaged a couple of colleagues and I went, has he said that? Does these read straight? This reads like Bethell is absolutely in and he's sacked off one of Crawley and Pope.
Where is Bethell? I haven't been paying enough attention to Jacob Bethell's whereabouts.
He is still with RCB. He is coming home very shortly and he's being replaced by Tim Seifert for the finals. There you go.
But is he not coming back because he didn't get picked, or did he not get picked because he didn't come back?
He wasn't. They just said from the beginning they're like, you play in the IPL, mate. He was the only England Test player out at the IPL, and they were happy for him to keep learning off Crawley. Basically, he could have had his first maiden ever professional century today, but there we go. But Stokes has said this, and today every newspaper subsequently wrote pressure put on Crawley and Pope as Bethell to come back in. And today, kind of, England have given a little nod to the media, being like, really sorry about that one, lads. Stokes meant the squad, not the 11. And so on the kind of very first media interaction after they've said, we need to be smarter, less naive in these areas, the England captains had to kind of issue a caveated response. And I found that fun.
Yeah, and does it mean the squad? I don't know if it does mean the squad. That doesn't actually gel with the recent results they had with the guy who made a lot of runs away from home.
Yeah, but what can you do?
Joe Root's the only one who didn't make big runs today. He did go past 13,000, which is one of those numbers that on its own, in isolation, 13,000 is not exciting to me particularly. 10 is exciting. 5 is worthwhile. 10 is good. 15, only one person's got to 15, so I suppose that's pretty good, but you're still not Sachin. But what is interesting is that there are only 4 others who've done it, and 3 of them are within striking distance. So Dravid, Callis, Ponting are all within 376 runs, I guess, of where Root is now, which means he could nab them all this season, leaving only Tendulkar on 15,900, so still basically 3,000 runs ahead, which Root's 34. He made 34 today. He is 34. So, we've talked about the could he catch Sachin bit before. Maybe don't need to go into that again because he can if he plays for long enough, the amount of tests that England played. But this next bit, when he's hunting down, when it's like the middle of Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he's in the underground maze. He's got like the hockey guy with the buzzsaw hands or whatever, and maybe that's Chuck Callis. I don't know. We can work out who we assign to which character, but he's got to hunt down a bunch of rivals in a short space of time to go in the clear as the number 2 highest run scorer ever.
Yeah, the only interesting thing I found about 13,000 was when I realised 4, 3, and 2 are all within 400 runs, 350 runs. So I was like, that can happen quickly. And also I found it, I don't know if reassuring is the right word, but I kind of went, because the reason Joe Root has scored as many runs as he has is partly because England plays so much Test cricket and he's had the opportunity to. And so I kind of thought his numbers were blurred to that extent. I thought it might be a kind of a Anderson case where it's like he's got all these wickets, but he's played so much more than everyone else. Joe Root will have played the same, if not slightly fewer, Test matches than Dravid, Callis and Ponting if he gets there, all being well. So he's on 153 Test matches, Dravid 164, Callis 166, Ponting 168, and you'd imagine he'd get those next 350, 400 runs within 10 Test matches. So he is already a great, but was reassuring that he is keeping track with the other greats, and it's not this kind of like slightly caveated statistic.
Yeah, it's not purely on volume like the, WG Grace did this, but WG Grace played 900 first-class matches. So, he should have made a lot of runs and taken a lot of wickets. Right, we're going to have the Hall of Fame after that. You will figure it out. Cam, Hall of Fame, ooh, I don't know. It was one of those, because it was such a heavy run-scoring day. There were. I've got a couple of thoughts, but I'll see if you've got any first.
I've only got one.
Okay.
It's not even. I don't know if it's really a Hall of Fame, but I just had a moment where I noticed that Ben Duckett now has Primetime Lager sponsored on the back of his bat. And Primetime Lager,
is that legit? Do they make bats? Have they got a bat making division?
They do not make bats. They are a brand that do low calorie or caffeinated beer. And they are founded by someone with it's fucking mental.
Caffeinated beer.
So this is like a Southwest West London drink founded by someone who was made in Chelsea. And I think they've basically gone like, what do people in West London like when they have a beer? They like a little pick-me-up. Let's make it £60 cheaper. So they basically giving you caffeinated. It's liquid cocaine. Let's be honest about it. And then I would have
thought if you were from Chelsea, you'd rather they just put cocaine in the beer.
I think I'm
surprised they went out of their way.
But my conclusion with this is because I realised Ben Duckett has done this with this Made in Chelsea person. Ben Stokes has just signed on with a zero alcohol cocktail company, which is also founded by a Made in Chelsea person.
Noticed that.
And so,
is that why he says he stopped drinking?
I don't want to put those two and two together because it just upset me. I was like, why? Please don't say it's as transparent as this. And basically my conclusion was, oh my God, why does English cricket have an image problem? And we've got 2 people in the England team who have commercial deals with Made in Chelsea stars and 3 who went to state school. So there we go.
I was under the impression that you're not allowed to have a sticker on your bat unless it's the bat maker. This is why MRF Tyres started making bats, because they wanted to get on Sachin's bat, and they couldn't until they had a bat making division.
Well, take it up with Ben. It's on the back of his bat, and that's also another thing that kills me when you realise why batters show the back of their bat when they're doing their salute for a century. It's because that's where they've got their extra bit of cash from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they hold it by the blade and hold it up there. It's It does bother me as well. I was keeping track on whether they'd get to 500 today. Frankly, disappointed that they didn't. 5 teams previously have made 500 runs in a day. 3 of those are England teams, but that happened in 1924, 1935, and 1936 when they used to bowl about 200 overs in a day. Sri Lanka did it to Bangladesh in 2002, and Pakistan did it to England in Rawalpindi a couple of years ago, 2022. So they finished on 498, didn't want it enough, didn't go hard in the last few overs, could have had 500 in a day, probably couldn't have had 588, but they might have got to 523 and been second all time if they'd really wanted to push. Disappointed they didn't. My other Hall of Fame is just a personal one in that I've never had to follow a test match. I had to go to the dentist just after the tea break. So I spent probably an hour with headphones in listening to the cricket on the radio while getting holes drilled in my face, which is better than listening to the holes being drilled in your face. But I've also never had to record a show with half of my face numb from injections. So I'm hoping I haven't been like spitting all over the screen and the microphone as we've been recording this.
Perfectly. I don't know if it's an insult to say I don't even know which half of your face is numb. I don't know if is that a good thing you want to hear or not hear? I don't know.
So that's it. That is the final word daily. We'll be back with as many days as there are of this test match, which is going out on Thursday. We've got 50 final word listeners running various distances at the Edinburgh Marathon Festival over the weekend to raise money for the Lord's Taverners. I've just had my nails done in Scotland colours in order to support this effort. So if you can jump in the show notes, find the link to donate, then you will cheer up those runners and you'll help 28,000 kids is how many kids got helped last year by the Lord's Taverners with their cricket program. So please get involved if you can. That's it. That's the final word daily. Cameron Ponsonby, Geoff Lemon. We'll be back with you on day 2.